Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And we are honored again to have one of
How
our...
many times is this?
I don't know.
4 or
we
5?
will always have Rich Tao on.
Rich Tao.
Rich,
is
thanks
the
for
master.
being here.
Do I get the jacket like on SNL if you host
Yeah,
5
that's
times?
right. Yeah, that's right.
You know, we
Get the five.
do have. I made up some Yetis. Well, maybe we'll send you like a box. Little
Just one
tumblers.
is fine, thank you.
Little tumblers with our logo on it. You can take them around when you do all these focus groups.
So,
I'd love to do it.
Rich, thanks for being here. And you just are fresh off of having done a focus group here in Arizona with voters who voted for Biden in 2020 and then switched to Trump in 2024. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I'll just let you give us the top lines and then we can dive in.
Yeah, so on February 11th, we did a pair of focus groups, a total of 11 respondents in Arizona. I think all of them are in Maricopa County, actually. Obviously, that's the bulk of the state's population is there. So the bottom line was I'm ecstatic about Trump. That's what they told me. They were happy with what he was doing, how he was behaving, happy about Musk and what he was doing. And the only real rough spot was when I asked them about Gaza. And they're not happy about what he proposed for Gaza.
Right. Well, I don't know that anybody's happy about that, but it is.
I don't think anybody really knows what he's proposed as.
Yeah,
yet.
but
so much of that is in the background.
It is fascinating to me that these are Biden voters from 2020 who switched to Trump, and if you were to pay attention to the mainstream media, and particularly MSNBC, you would think that Trump has completely lost his mind, that it's President Musk. Nobody likes what's going on. This is the constitutional crisis.
And yet, the buzzword. And they saw right through it.
Your focus group participants were like, this is awesome.
Yeah, they were very enthusiastic. What was interesting to me is it sounded somewhat similar to the groups I did with the Trump to Biden voters 4 years ago, when it was the first month or two. And when I asked them how they felt when they saw Biden on TV, it was relief and calm. They had been upset with how Trump behaved in his 4 years. And now I've got 4 years later, these people went Biden to Trump. They were upset at how Biden behaved in office and what a mess he left for Trump to clean up. So they're enthusiastic for Trump to clean it up.
Pretty amazing.
This is one of the reasons why I appreciate what you do. It's because those of us in the political realm get in the bubble and we just think, oh, there's no way that anyone would think this or think that. And what it shows is that the middle of America, the voters who actually make the difference in elections, can go either way. And there's constant movement. I mean, this isn't just, it's not two teams set in stone. You've got this big swath in the middle that really can sway back and forth. And Trump, to his credit, as a strong start in keeping these people happy.
Yeah, I was really impressed by some of the comments, specifically around the whole Doge effort and their ability just to kind of see what's really happening and be enthusiastic about the cuts that are coming and rooting out waste, fraud, and corruption. Everyone seemed to be really on board with that.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's interesting, Chris. So they like what they're hearing. They are hearing, I would say, a fairly conservative media diet's worth of description of what's happening.
Sure.
So they see things through that lens. It was sort of the mirror image of when I would talk to the Trump to Biden voters, and they would see things through MSNBC and other liberal networks, right? So the thing I'm curious about is, how does this play over time? How does it play with constituents who live in red states or purple states who voted for Trump but discover that certain cuts might affect them personally. And does that play okay over time? And as you know, because you guys have been in and around politics for a very, very long time, the bulk of federal spending is not on stuff, it's on transfer payments.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you really want to balance the budget, you can't do it just on discretionary spending. So I get that they're doing sort of the let's go in and just find the inefficiency and the waste, and clearly there's massive amounts of it to be found. But if you truly want to get the budget into balance, you got to go after the stuff that's super popular. And my question is Trump going to really do that?
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
question.
Did you hear the testimony yesterday in front of the Doge committee of the House of the individual who talked about just going after Medicare fraud that exists within the system and putting some safeguards on how people sign up for Medicare? It was fascinating. And he was claiming, I can't remember his name, but he was claiming that just that alone might save even $1 trillion. Because
the fraud of Medicare is massive.
Yeah,
off the
because of the
charts.
fraud, just in terms of like, there's no verification. People sign up willy-nilly. They're getting checks. They have no business being on Medicare. That sort of thing is just up to $1 trillion is
That's astounding.
what the number was. I'm like, I mean, just what are they going to find in Social Security? Where are they going to find the DOD? It's all fair game, in my opinion, and it's
Well,
all great that it's happening
right.
finally. And it's great also that we have the technology, because I think what's happening is that AI is being utilized for this to find it
Yeah, I
quickly.
mean, the biggest issue is being able to actually find it.
Yeah.
But to your point, Rich, I think it's very important for people to understand that. I mean, you could cut the Defense Department to zero, and you could cut foreign aid to zero, and it would have like a 2% impact on
Yeah.
our national debt. I mean, it's just not going to do it. So it has to be the big stuff, and that's where it gets interesting. What was the thing that was the most surprising to you from the groups that you did here in Arizona?
What was most surprising to me? I guess it was that Musk has been as well received as he has been by these folks, given sort of the mainstream media narrative about how controversial the steps he's taking actually are. That I thought there'd be a little bit more pushback on Musk. So 8 approved of what he was doing, 1 disapproved, and 2 just didn't know enough about what he was doing to render an opinion either way. That surprised me. The other thing that surprised me a little bit was that a number of them, most of them did not think, actually 9 of the 11 did not think Trump had done that much to address inflation in his first few weeks. And when I asked them at the beginning of the session, what's your top issue? I think about 4 or 5 of them said the economy and inflation were their top issue. The others said immigration and a couple other things. And so they're cutting him some slack right now on not attacking inflation head on immediately. And it led me to think, wow, this is going to be an interesting question to ask if inflation continues to persist
Right.
going into the summer and the fall. Because I will tell you, with the Trump to Biden voters, inflation was one of the biggest things that they complained about, were upset about, was the reason why they pushed him out. And I don't think they're going to be all that kind to Trump, even though they might be more in line with him ideologically. If they're having a hard time paying their bills 6 months, a year and a half from now, he's going to get some of that blame.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a real danger for him, I think, going forward, is to not show that he's as focused on that squarely. And the other side of that, guys, by the way, is when he works on things that people think are a distraction, like Greenland or the Panama Canal. It's like, well, why aren't you focusing on my thing? He's leaving himself wide open to showing by other actions, things far away from inflation, that he doesn't have his eye on the ball. That's something I think Democrats can attack him on. So again, he gets inflation under control. People feel better about what things cost. It won't be a problem. But if he doesn't get control of it, I think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I think that I mean, we'll see. I think that given the success that they're having with some of the government spending cuts, with the ability to do what he can do on the energy policy, there's probably a good path for him to pull us out of the inflationary standpoint. But there's a lot of things that, can have some impact. I mean, obviously we don't know how the tariffs are going to play out if they come into effect. He's that's a game of chicken to some degree.
There was some discussion about tariffs on your focus group in terms of people are afraid how that's going to affect them and the possibilities of those.
Very much so. Chris, this is sort of, to me, one of the head-scratching things looking back on the Harris campaign that I didn't understand, because when I focus grouped the Trump to Biden voters in September or October, when they started talking about the tariffs, they were scared to death of the impact that that would have on their pocketbook. They really did not want to see tariffs because it would raise prices. So now I talk to these Biden to Trump voters and I get a couple reactions. I get a couple of people saying, you know what, this really is a concern for me, just like I heard before the election. Then I have other people saying, you know what, you got to give the tariffs time. If Trump uses the tariffs to tell other countries that they have to control the prices of what they sell us, then maybe those prices over time will drop. And that would be a good thing for American consumers. The other thing they say is, well, it's not just about prices, it's about jobs and manufacturing. And the purpose of imposing these tariffs is to build up America's manufacturing base and employ more people here. So there is a degree of patience that people who like Trump and like him generally want to give him when it comes to these tariffs, but I'm not sure he has truly a blank check on this. The other thing I'll tell you, by the way, is that these folks, the savvier ones in particular, are onto Trump and his negotiating technique, which is to come out of the gate with the most extreme position you could ever imagine. Like, we're going to take over the Panama Canal. We're going to take over Greenland. We're going to do this. We're going to do that.
Make Canada the 51st state.
Exactly. All of that stuff. And they look at it and they go, you know what? That's just his opening bid.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's accustomed to negotiating. He's accustomed to intimidation as part of the negotiating process. And this is just the way he deals with things. And I think some of them saw the Gaza bid that way also. They just don't want America involved so much overseas. They want the focus back on what's happening here because they're struggling here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
it's
absolutely
interesting
true.
that these, average voters have figured Trump out more so than Rachel Maddow and the chattering classes on the left who
like
just
we
think
said on the
everything's a crisis.
It's like we've said on the show, they probably, maybe they went back into their library or their bookcase, dusted off an old copy of The Art of the Deal and read it because it's all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you have any conversations with them about Trump's cabinet picks?
I did not talk to them about Trump's cabinet picks. I just did not have time to do it.
Yeah.
I was trying to, just so you guys know, my approach on monitoring focus groups is part of the time I spend is trying to hear what they know. So I ask questions like, how many of you could name at least one thing that Trump has done since he took office? So I tried to determine who knew nothing. And there was one woman kind of on the margins who knew almost nothing. Then there was about 5 or 6 who could name 1 or 2 things. And then the other 4 or 5 of them could name multiple things. So I wanted each person to tell me what they had heard because I was curious as to what was bubbling up. Because what you find in focus groups is if people haven't heard something, rendering an opinion on something they haven't heard about is meaningless.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was really trying to understand what they had heard. So the interesting thing was a lot of stuff bubbled up about things that he had done. The people who were paying attention had heard about a lot of things, his stuff on transgender, his stuff on renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, his attempts to limit the size of the federal workforce, just going down the list of a whole host of things that he was trying to do. They had heard about a lot of them, which was really interesting that he had penetrated as far as he had. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but I compared this to the conversations I had with people about Biden. And I would ask questions in Biden's last year. Who can name at least one thing that Biden achieved in office that he would say is an achievement? So I would get blank stares. Half the people in the group could not name a single thing that Biden achieved in 3.5 years in office.
Yeah.
And if they could name anything, it was student loan debt relief. Seriously,
Right.
these guys thought that he did nothing.
The
And what was
real
so interesting-
constitutional crisis.
Yeah. So that was the interesting thing, right, Chris? So and I don't know if you saw, there was an interview with Biden 3 days before he left office, where he was asked what his regret was. He said his regret was not better selling his achievements.
Oh.
And I'm thinking to myself, in 2021, when I'm doing these focus groups every single month, 6 months in, 9 months in, these people have no idea how he's spending trillions of dollars. They haven't even heard that it happened.
Right.
Inflation Reduction Act, I don't know. CHIPS Act, I don't know. Infrastructure, I don't know. They didn't know squat about trillions of dollars in spending. And that was one of the things that I think sank him, was the idea that not only was he old, but he was doing nothing to justify his paycheck. And Trump is the exact opposite, which is he's constantly selling his achievements.
Yeah.
And the fact that Biden followed him into office and didn't learn from that is complete political malpractice.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's a
think
great point.
also we're finding out that Biden really was not all there the entire time he was in office.
Oh, yeah, well, I get,
mean,
but
yeah,
here's the
that's
thing.
just that's not a mean thing to say. It's just the reality. I mean, if you look at what's happened over the last 2 weeks, I mean, Trump is in front of the press every single day, selling,
Yeah,
pitching,
exactly.
and rightly or wrongly, love him or hate him, it's refreshing. People are excited again. Whereas Biden needed a teleprompter just to speak to 10 donors at some fundraiser, which is being reported now.
Well, I think part of it too, Chris, is
Sad.
Biden clearly was diminished compared to the way I remember him when he was in his 50s.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, what was the knock against Biden 30 years ago? He wouldn't stop talking.
Right. He was
could not shut him up.
right.
And then we have the exact opposite, where you can't hear from him often enough. Where is he? What is he going? So I think people who like our age, right, who remember him when we were younger, remember a guy who was vibrant. So by comparison to that, yeah, where the hell is he?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, even if he wasn't in charge, you would think that other people in the administration would have said, hey, someone's got to be out here selling our achievements. If we as a team, forget Biden as the president, want to get reelected, we need to do this. The comms people were completely asleep at the switch. So that to me was a team failure. It wasn't just a Biden failure. It's like, how can you go 4 years, spend trillions of dollars, and not have the American people know that you did the damn thing?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think also you're seeing the juxtaposition between a team that's coming together and out there with the same message, with Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and everyone else. They're all singing from the same playbook, versus an administration that was just discombobulated and kind of not even on the same track.
yeah.
In some ways.
What? So you did Georgia right after literally the day after the inauguration. You've done Arizona. What's your next one? And this is a project you've been doing now for a number of years, and I'm super happy that you're continuing it.
Yeah.
I presume this will continue to go on as we go through the midterm and then into the next presidential election.
Yeah. So let me give you kind of your listeners, viewers, a little bit of context here. We started this project with Obama to Trump voters in March of 2019. So I've been at this literally every single month except December of 20, 22, and 24. I took off 1 month every 24 months.
Good for you.
Because I deserve a tiny break. But yeah, so next month is our 6th anniversary of starting this.
Great.
Next month is Michigan. And we're just cycling through each month a different swing state. And I'll tell you the reason why we did Arizona is that you guys are 2 hours behind Pennsylvania, where I live, as opposed to 3 hours this time of
That's
year
right.
because of daylight savings time.
Right.
So to make it more tolerable for me to do groups from the East Coast, we did them during the winter months.
That's a good idea.
But yeah, so the plan is to keep going. We do this in partnership with Axios. If anybody reads Axios, they love to cover our stuff. And essentially what we do is interview different categories of voters every election cycle. So it was originally Obama to Trump before the 2020 election. It was Trump to Biden during the Biden administration. And now it's Biden to Trump during the second Trump administration. So that's the theme. Every month it's a different swing state looking at Biden to Trump voters.
Yeah. Well, and Michigan will be interesting because it's now got an open Senate seat. One of, and Michigan. So as I look at the Senate map going into next election, there really is only two true toss-up states, and that's John Ossoff in Georgia and this open seat in Michigan. Because Tina Smith just announced today she's not going to run for re-election in Minnesota, but that's pretty blue.
Yeah.
And you've got Husted in Ohio, which is pretty red, so that's not likely to change. And then you've got Susan Collins. She's up, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
she's likely to stay there. So there's really, oh, and Tom Tillis is up, right? In North Carolina.
Yeah.
So there's just not, the map is super small in comparison to previous cycles. So it really will be, you'll have a little bit of Senate stuff, but you're going to have, a number of governor's races, and then just obviously watching how the Trump administration plays itself out during the midterm and then going into, because he's a one-term president, he's only got one term left. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and I'd say one quick thing. You might have seen, if you saw the highlights video, the exchange I had about flooding the zone.
Yes.
So, there's the old Steve Bannon thing, you got to flood the zone, do as many things at once as possible to throw off your opponents, right? That's part of the strategy. So I asked the respondents in the focus group about whether Trump was deliberately trying to throw off his opponents. That's what really surprised me. I should have said that earlier. Their response was, no, he's not trying to do that to throw off his opponents. It's that Biden left him with such a mess. He has to do so much to clean it up, and he better start fast because he has only 4 years to do it.
Wow.
that was
is
really
amazing.
interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
That was interesting.
Well, Rich, how can people follow your work, get in touch with you if they need to? We obviously love having you as a guest, and we're going to continue
thank you
to
so
do
much.
that. But let people know how they can reach out.
So the project videos are posted every month at swingvoterproject.com, just swingvoterproject.com. The most recent month's videos are up there. If you want to look at previous videos, send me an email. Just if you go to the website, you'll see a place to connect with us, and you can send a query, and I'll be happy to send you links to prior month's videos. And if you have show notes, you could put the link in there.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'd love for people to follow it. Suggest questions to me if you like. It's a labor of love. I got to tell you, it's hard. I hear a lot of stuff that is a little off base, a little peculiar.
No, you keep your composure and
You
keep
really
things moving
do.
really well.
I would not be able to keep a straight face on some of the things that people say. It is amazing how well you do this.
I was blessed with a few talents, and one of them is to keep a straight face when hearing stuff that is completely ridiculous. And by the way, that's not what's going on in my mind. That's just what's going on in my face.
Right.
Yeah.
In my head, you could only imagine
Just the screaming.
what the hamster on the hamster wheel is doing inside my head.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, yeah,
Great.
I when listening to the latest one, I had several of those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, thank you so much again for being a guest.
Yeah.
We love having you. We'll have you back. Go to swingvoterproject.com to learn more and to reach out. And until next time, thanks, Rich.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you.
Thank you.